Good evening and welcome to the Gerry Leeds United show. We're back here this evening. The game's not long finished, 5 or 10 minutes ago. Wolves have won 1-0. I'm not sure how, but we had our chances. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be. So we'll just go around. We've got James and Debbie, and we've got Brian G back on. So we'll just go around sort of then start with Debbie on your initial reaction to the result.
Yeah, disappointing. I thought we deserved something out of the game. I thought at half time it was probably a fair result, to be honest. I don't know. I think I didn't really enjoy the game throughout. I was sat on the edge of my seat throughout the game. I thought Cooper could have had an hat-trick, to be honest, and probably should have had an hat-trick. I don't like Wolves. They just do the 1-0. They did it at Ellen Road. They seemed to stifle our play. We didn't play as fluent as what we normally do, and certainly away from home. Yeah, I would say a fluky goal won it because it weren't a great goal. But yeah, some positives to come from our performance, I think, tonight. I think the team was right going into the game. I think the defence was, as we said, we all wanted it, basically. I don't think they really troubled us, to be honest, in front of goal. I know Meslier had quite a few saves to do first half, but none that really troubled him. And I just think that it was probably going to be a 0-0 or a 1-0, and obviously it went the other way, didn't it? So yeah, disappointing for me, to be honest.
And James?
I think it's just a carbon copy of the game at Ellen Road. I thought it was a game that both teams could have won. I didn't think there was an outstanding thing. I was talking to Debbie at half time and chatting about the first half. Now, normally watching us, you can kind of pick out a certain point or chat about a game. I thought the first half was really boring. Even from a neutral point of view, I don't think it was very entertaining at all. Second half, it livened up a little bit. But in terms of, once I say carbon copy, the goal at Ellen Road when they beat us 1-0 was a big deflection off Phillips that they scored from. And then the goal today was another big, obviously hit the crossbar and hit the keeper. I mean, the commentators sat there going, it's a wonder goal. A wonder goal that hits the crossbar and it's the keeper and goes in. I'm sorry, I just don't come off it. I mean, all in all, 90 minutes, it wasn't a great spectacle for a Leeds fan, a Wolves fan, or a neutral. But we certainly didn't deserve to lose that. And like Debbie alluded to, Cooper could have had a hat-trick easy. Should have. And it just shows when you miss a big chance like that, 30 seconds later, the ball's in the back of the net at the other end, and that's what happens in football. Football can change just like that. Unfortunately,
what I did forget to mention was the referee, because I thought the referee was appalling throughout the game from start to finish. He didn't have to give anything to Leeds, and the free kicks that were there that weren't, the handballs that were there that weren't, it was just awful, to be honest.
I think I'd echo that just from Debbie. I thought he was very, very niggly. I think I always said to you, I said to you on the first show, Gerry, if you don't mention a referee, you know he's done well. And I think you could talk about the referee from the first minute till the 90th minute. He gave so many soft free kicks against us, and some that we didn't get. I mean, he didn't influence the result. It didn't change the result, but it certainly lost the flow of our play. It was stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. But without really getting his cards out of his pocket. I mean, that's Saiz. I mean, really, in the accumulation of a game, he probably could have been sent off. I can't believe he lasted a whole game without getting a yellow card. He could have been booked twice in the first half and twice in the second half. I just don't know what game he was watching at times. I thought he was very, very, very poor.
And Brian, what are your initial thoughts on the game?
Yeah, well, I must admit that I think I've got a sort of slightly different opinion to what I heard tonight so far, which is, first of all, I think a draw would have been probably a fair result. But I think that Wolves tonight probably deserved the match because they came with a game plan that worked better than ours. That you were just talking there quite rightly, James, about the niggly game. I think Wolves came to play a niggly game to disrupt the Leeds flow. I think that was tactical. I think there were a few other lads who put more into the game than any of our guys. I think, and given that this is a broadcast rather than four guys, sitting in a pub, I mean, I'd have to be honest and say, if I thought about who starred in the game, I can't think of any Leeds players who starred. I could say that they had 2 or 3 guys who played. Neto had 4 or 5 good could have been 3-0 to them at the beginning of or at half time, because I think Neto really starred in the game. All the talk during the transfer window was that Traore was out of favour with Wolves. Well, I mean, maybe I get this wrong. I'd have him in our team. End of story. That guy is pretty spectacular, and I think he taught us a bit of a lesson tonight. I think he bullied our back four, and for the goal, I don't think it was a wonder goal. It was an unlucky goal. Came back off the post, and in off the keeper. That's football. It happens. The vast majority of the times it hits the post and nothing happens. It was a bit unfortunate, but I actually thought he just looked like a pain in the backside to us every time he got the ball, and I would gladly have him in our team. The few things that I took away was I was pleased that we didn't have Strike playing that midfield role because he's a better centre back. But Shackleton, and actually wrote down after 14 minutes, I said, does Shackleton know that he's playing KP's role? Because he wasn't playing KP's role. He was all over the place. I thought Shack's I thought he had a poor game. I don't think there was any Leeds player tonight, with the exception of Rafinha, that you could turn around and say, oh, they had a good game. So it was a mediocre game on a mediocre night.
Rafinha.
Mediocre playing conditions, a lot of wind. And I don't think with anybody who really put the foot in the ball and said they were going to show what they were going to do. I was hoping that Hernandez would come on and do something, and I felt that he came on and he didn't really offer us any more. I thought Roberts was quite sloppy and wasted a lot of possession. But the thing is that but it didn't happen. Slightly better luck would have been 1-1. Slightly better luck. I think it was you said it, Debbie. Coops could have scored 2 or 3. And the only bit that I sort of took some comfort from, I just thought Rafinha he just looked a different class to the rest of our team tonight. I'm not overly disappointed, by the way. I might add. I think that James, I think you nailed it. They did exactly what they did to us at Ellen Road. Anyway, that's just that's just.
I'm just quite surprised by the Rafinha comment. Honestly, I'm a big fan of Rafinha. I cannot think of one thing in the game that he did. I honestly do not think I'm just absolutely flabbergasted. I mean, football's about opinions. Football's about opinions. I just do not pick a point how you can say he was different class. I did not see that.
Okay. Well, where I come from on that tonight was, and it was unusual, the number of free kicks that we got from sort of left or right midfield, 20 yards outside the box. It's a funny place to be for you to see Leeds pumping the ball into the box. I don't think we normally do that. But I think that there was 4 or 5 times that I sort of take a note that the 2 or 3 opportunities in the first half were headers for Coops, were all from free kicks from Rafinha. The opportunity for Cooper at the last minute was a ball from Rafinha. Rafinha nearly headed an equaliser immediately after that from the corner. To me, he was the only player I thought that, in terms of, I was just writing down the odd wee note because I knew it was coming on. I was just writing down, the 19th minute Cooper's header. It was a Rafinha ball. Cooper and Bamford both had a headed chance in 62. It was from a Rafinha ball. So I thought that he was the only guy doing anything creative. But what did you make of when Hernandez came on? Because I just didn't think he had any. I was hoping that he would have. I just didn't think that he had any impact in the game at all, which was a shame because I think I've got to the stage with Hernandez where I'm hoping that he'll come on like the Messiah, because he he had that sort of messiah role so many times, even last season for us. I sort of understand why he's not getting a start, because I don't know whether it's the legs aren't quite right or whatever, but maybe the brain's quick and the body isn't. And by the way, I'm a very positive Leeds supporter. I don't think that I'm a dour git. I just felt tonight that the result wasn't overly unfair. I think the best we could have hoped from that was probably a draw. I think a draw might have been fairer, but we didn't get it. And we didn't get it because we didn't convert, probably half a dozen decent chances. And I felt it was Rafinha had produced maybe 5 of the 6 chances. I'm not sure who put the ball through for Bamford when he was offside. I'm not 100% sure that wasn't Roberts. Yeah,
it was Roberts.
Yeah. What did you think of Roberts tonight, guys? I thought Roberts was all over the place. I didn't think he was control of the ball once. I
completely disagree.
If I was writing a player down, it would have been Roberts tonight for me.
He was the one that stood out for me.
I thought he was
the one that stood out. This is why football's great, because so many different opinions. I didn't think Rafinha offered anything. Now he's our star player, and I think he's brilliant. But I thought certainly in the first half, Roberts was outstanding. He was our best player by a mile in the first half. It wasn't even close. And in the second half, like you say, you created the chance. I didn't think he was as good in the second half, but I certainly don't think he was all over.
I thought he was really just a bit. I thought he lost the ball a fair bit, but you're 100% right. I think it's all about opinions, and that's fair enough. But I definitely did think that the stars of the game were on. The couple of standout players didn't have white shirts on tonight. I thought they had gold shirts on. I thought that there were 2 of their players, as I say. I would have been quite pleased if they were, playing the other way tonight. I definitely, I know I'm repeating myself, but boy, if we'd signed Traore when he was slightly out of favour, you could hear that he'd gone 18 or 19 games or not been playing for 18 or 19 games, or hadn't scored in a long time, whatever. And there was definitely some paper talk. I don't know if you spotted it, whether it was general or maybe just in whatever I was looking on online, but there was some rumblings that Leeds were looking at him. I mean, he looks like a pretty good player. I thought Costa was a bit unlucky in the end as well. He could have just as easily. He tends to kick the ball too much out the goalie instead of left or right. But I was out of the chair screaming about one.
He should have scored.
Well, he could have just as it would have almost just as been easy for him to score as to kick it to the goalie, wouldn't it? That's the difference,
though, isn't it?
The ball sort of dropped out of the sky, and all of a sudden he had it controlled. I mean, like, these things are happening at the speed of light. I thought the weather had a fair bit tonight. Did you notice a couple of times at corners you could really see the corner flag really,
the wind,
pushing
over.
I
just want to talk about Neto. Obviously, you've mentioned Neto as one of the star players on the pitch. Now, I'd certainly agree that he had a lot of the ball. Do you think there was a lot of quality there? There's a lot of end product. I can't think of a time when there was an actual end product. It's okay having the ball, and let's face it, this year he has been involved in a fair bit for Wolves, and he's been mentioned. But I thought tonight he got in some good positions, and he had a lot of the ball. But was there really that end product, a bit of quality? In the first half, he had 3 shots that hit Rosehead in the stand. The end product was not there. So I wouldn't say he's a key player if you haven't got an end product. Is that a key player without an end product?
Well, I think that's it. That's an interesting. That's an interesting definition. Then it means that the only key player tonight was one of their guys because there was an end product. But I felt that in terms of standout players, I'm really just saying in tonight's game, in terms of standout players, I didn't think we'd anybody particularly stand out. I didn't think we played. I don't think whether we didn't play it because we just didn't get on it, or whether and again, tactically I'm not clever enough to tell you, but I felt it was. And you said earlier, you called it about the niggly. I thought the Wolves just niggled us off our normal game. For the first 15, on 17 minutes, the one thing I wrote down was we haven't played our own game yet. We hadn't really. I didn't think that we'd been sort of passing and moving for the first quarter. I thought Wolves really came out of the blocks quickly. to almost put a bit of a stamp to say you're not going to get the ball, and they pressed us up the pitch. Yeah, it was, but it was very interesting tactically to see the way they were doing it. And I think Ian Darke, who didn't mention that Stuart was Leeds born and bred tonight, which is the first match that he hasn't. I was a bit disappointed about that, to be honest with you. I thought he actually got it right that said that they had their wingers tucked in a little bit. The wingers weren't quite as wide. They tucked them in 10 yards, trying to exploit the gap between, because there's a bit of a gap because our left and right back play, on the sidelines. So I thought that was quite an interesting bit, the way they nullified us a little bit. But
I always think we're very naive, though. I think we're very naive. Now, you look at the amount of times that they threw themselves to the floor. Certainly the last minute when Connor Cody headed it away and cleared it, and he fell to the floor and made out he was injured. There was no injury there. There was Saiz 2 or 3 times in the second half. He was holding his leg at 1 second, then he was holding his ankle, then his back, then his arm. He didn't know what was the matter with him. There was some play acting going there, and they certainly got involved in the niggly side of the game, where I thought they was slowing things down, and I thought it was a dirty tactic the way they tried to slow the game down. And to be fair, there was a lot of throwing themselves to the ground pretty easy, which the referee fell for.
Well, I definitely think that. And you said the word tactic within that. I definitely think that was, the disrupt the Leeds game tactic, and they did do that.
Stop us playing our game. Stop us playing our game straight away.
They did that at Ellen Road. Did you see do you know what? I don't think I've ever seen a free kick on the corner of a box with 10 minutes to go, where you fake the ball to waste time into the corner. I thought that was. I thought that was. If we'd equalised after that, I would have been giving them the fingers for 10 minutes and shouting obscenities at the TV. For I thought that was pretty shocking. It was, and I thought the ref. The ref was a bit bitty. I was glad that he booked Neto for time wasting.
He was appalling tonight. I'm sorry.
I
really hate talking about referees, but he was appalling tonight. Rubbish, absolute rubbish.
Yeah, and again, there was nothing really that annoyed me about the ref tonight. I was, but that's, I mean, it's just the way you sit and watch football. So you two were sitting watching it together and maybe discussing stuff. I was sitting watching it my own and maybe not quite conscious of stuff in the same way you guys were. Maybe just taking slightly different bits. I'm just sort of disappointed that I felt that we were just not quite what we should have been. I was expecting a wee bit more after the last result. I thought they would come out with a wee bit more intention.
I think probably the only thing that we all agree on, the only thing that probably the four of us will agree on, is that we weren't at our best. That's the only thing we do agree on. We don't agree on the referee. We don't agree on the scoreline. I certainly do not think Wolves deserve to win. I mean, you look at the clear-cut chances in the game. There's no way Wolves deserve to win that game. Not in terms of clear-cut chances. You can. I mean, we can talk all night about it. There's no way they deserve to beat us tonight. But the only thing we can do is say that we didn't play our best tonight, and I think that was literally down to them stifling our game.
I'd be interested to hear Gerry's opinion, because we've probably all been hogging the time here. And Gerry, what did you think?
Well, I have a couple of notes that I took as well. So to start off with, I was happy with the lineup. I had no arguments there. I was happy. I thought that would have been sort of, whenever I seen those 11 players, that was more or less where I wanted the players to be. The very first note that I wrote down in the game was Wolves are dangerous from distance. They just were shooting constantly. It ended up winning the game. Fluke, but and from our perspective, I don't necessarily think we done anything wrong there, because Traore got the ball, and yes, he maybe got by Ealing a bit easy, but Struik was right on him. And it was just like he hit a good shot, and it was really unlucky with the goalkeeper. I also mentioned, as you were saying, Brian, about Rafinha, and I think probably from free kicks, he was very creative. There was honestly, one of the notes I wrote, chances at set pieces, Wolves aren't tracking the runs at free kicks, and then Cooper obviously had them couple of chances. I think Rafinha, for some reason, his free kicks are fantastic. The balls he was putting in, corners not so much. He was like every corner was hitting that first man at the near post. And was getting to me. Shackleton, I wrote here, I don't think he was disciplined enough. He was see whenever he has the ball, he's very, very good with his feet. He's very good at passing. But there was so many times where there must have been 30 yards of green between our defence and our midfield, and that's where Calvin plays. And he wasn't there often enough for me. But
I 100% agree with that, Gerry. Yeah.
With the ball,
more in the first half, maybe more in the first half than the second half.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that he'd almost forgotten that was his role. Sorry, go ahead, Gerry. Sorry.
I was looking at it, and at the time he went off, I think he had 96% successful passes. Which, whenever you're playing in midfield and you're hitting 96% of your passes, that's very, very good. But I just thought I would have liked him to have been wanting the ball more. Like it was like something like 20 out of 29 or 30 passes. Whereas if he had wanted the ball a bit more and been in the position to take the ball off the centre backs, I think he could have added to that, and it would have been more beneficial to us. The note I put down about Tyler Roberts was I didn't think the game was suitable for him. I thought that he was largely for the first hour until they scored. Basically, I thought he was kind of stuck in a position where his natural instinct is the attack, and we didn't have enough of the ball in the final third for him to be at his best. Work rate's fine, but I didn't think it was suitable for him. It frustrated me that the most tempo that we showed was again whenever we were behind. If we had started and the way we went for about the 10 minutes after they scored, a lot of high tempo, a lot of quick passing, and I think if we had played like that from the beginning, it could have been a different game. But ultimately, for me, we didn't play very well as we've all agreed on, and we weren't at our best. But that said, we had at least 4 really good chances, and if you get 4 really good chances in a football match and you don't score any goals, you deserve to lose. So we have to take that on the chin, and that's us. It's at the end of the day. Some days you'll get 4 chances and you'll score 3 of them. Tonight it wasn't to be. At the end of the day, 3 really good chances fell. At least 2 that I thought he really should have done better with was Cooper. And the Costa one right at the end, I thought they were like 3 really good chances, and there was a couple of other ones. But I thought we were just really unlucky. Like even the situation you were saying about the Cody one at the end. Like the actual rule, as far as I understand it, is whenever there's an incident, and I know that
I was really annoyed about
he
that.
very quickly recovered. He very quickly recovered, but as far as I am aware, the rule there is whenever a head injury, so the referee seeing a head injury, he did fairly get blasted at. The referee sees a head injury, and because it's in the penalty box, it's a drop ball, uncontested drop ball to the defending team. And from that, they had the ball in our corner for about 3 or 4 minutes.
That actually, do you know what? I'm really pleased you picked up on that, because I've written that down. I thought that was really unsporting, because we had the ball over the corner.
It wasn't sporting, yeah. It's not the referee's fault. He has to adhere to the rules. It's unsporting from Cody. They keep talking, and they kept saying it on commentary about him being a hard man and a tough man and don't go to the ground very often. He's headed a ball clear and he's fallen to the floor like he's been shot from a harpoon. I mean, it was that bad. It was pathetic. It really was.
See if Cooper done that, and we were winning 1-0, and Cooper took a blocked a shot like the way he did.
We don't do that.
And he I would have been over rubbing his back. Like,
well, we don't.
Yeah,
we don't. I'd
have called the St. John's ambulance for Cooper if it had been Cooper and we're 1-0 up. But I thought it was a bit unsporting, because after a drop ball, they should have given the Leeds the ball back, even if it was in their own half. But what they actually did was kick the whole way up, and then the Wolves guys ran on. But I don't think it didn't. I think it changed the result. There were a few other wee things, just wee snippets tonight. I was really, I actually felt really. I'm not going to say I felt sorry for the goalie, because it was a freak goal, and I don't think anybody would complain about. It's a freak goal. I thought he had a great game. Other than that, he certainly came out with 2 really good saves. couple of saves, you know, that you'd expect him to hold, and he did.
His distribution was fantastic as well tonight.
Yeah, I thought he was very solid on his feet. Produced a couple of good saves. I mean, the lad's only 20. I've got a 21-year-old son who can barely tie his fucking laces. You know, so when you think about that kid being 20 years of age, so I was really pleased to see him have a good game. I'm hoping that the lads will put the arm around him tonight and say, look, you know, fuck me, the ball comes off the post and hits in the head and goes back in the goal. You know, funny enough, do you know what? I don't know if you saw it today. It was on the, I think it might have been on the Leeds 1919 Facebook site. Somebody posted a bit of a biff between Gary Sprake and Gould, your man Bobby Gould, when he played for Wolves. You didn't see that by any chance?
No.
And there was a bit of a clash between the two of them, got up for a ball.
No doubt.
And Gould looked like he led with the elbow a wee bit, and Gary Sprake turns around and gives him a left hook on the chin and leaves him flat. Did you see that today? No.
Do you know what?
It's a 70s special, but
I didn't see it, but I actually read about it, and one of the book I'm reading at the minute is about the Don Revie era, and I actually did read about it this week. And they were talking about that.
It was like a boxing match. Sprake caught him with a left hook on the chin and led him flat out. They both got booked. That was it. They both got booked. I mean, it was hard to believe. Yeah, no, I was pleased for Meslier.
Just talking about Meslier.
Yeah,
just talking about Meslier again. I think the key is what you said. He is 20 years old. What we've got to remember is this guy is playing week in, week out in the Premier League. And now you look at the week before the Arsenal game. Alisson at Liverpool made 3 mistakes against Man City, which cost Liverpool, which no one really, you heard about it probably for 5 minutes and never heard about it again. But you look at, you have got to, he is going to make mistakes. We all know that. He is the best keeper at our football club, and he is going to be a fantastic goalkeeper. You'll never hear criticism from me. He's 20 years old and he's playing week in, week out in this league. He needs some help. He definitely needs another keeper alongside him, and I don't mean Kiko. He needs a good quality keeper alongside him who can help him along, learning the trade, and maybe take him out the limelight a little bit. I mean, he had a poor game at Spurs away where he struggled with his distribution a bit. He struggled again last week at Arsenal. He just seems to be getting overawed by a few games. But again, you can't blame the lad. He's 20 years old. He just needs that bit of help where you can take him out of that limelight. So for me, he is learning on the job. Yeah. He is learning on the job. He isn't like he's been sat in the wings being nurtured by an experienced keeper. He's literally playing every week with no one showing him. He's learning on the job. Hopefully in the summer we can bring someone in with that quality, help him along the way, and maybe play that lad week in, week out.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I was pleased to see him get a good game tonight. I wasn't overly critical of him in Arsenal last week. I feel that our way of playing, there's an awful lot of balls go back to the keeper, and when teams press us, it does put us under, us trying to play out from the back does put us under a bit of pressure. One of my wee notes tonight was I noticed that we were hoofing the ball a wee bit more. Meslier was rather than when it got to the stage where he was hitting the ball long, he wasn't hitting it to halfway, to the halfway line. When he decided that he was booting it, he was putting his laces into it. So I thought there was a slight change to his tactic. In terms of quality keepers to keep him going, I mean, he is keeping Kiko out of the team, and Kiko is a quality goalkeeper. I'm not sure that I particularly want him to be the number one keeper, but he is a quality keeper. And the other guy, the kid who's playing in the under 21s or under 23s, looks like a half decent keeper. I'm sure they've got some goalkeeper coaches there, but like I still just come back to the under. I don't know if you watched the under 23 game today, and the under 23s are sort of storming the League Two of the under 23s. But when you see the under 23s play, they all look like kids. Well, a lot of them look like kids. You know what I mean? And this kid at 20 is commanding a position in the first team. I just think it's wonderful. I mean, it makes an old man happy to see somebody quite young. And Leeds have a history. A lot of young goalkeepers. when Gary Sprake, I hate coming back to the 60s, but when Gary Sprake was in the team in the late 60s and early 70s, that kid was only 20, 21, 22. It's funny to see some of those old pictures. It takes me right back to when I was a boy. I want to make sure that we're not really that different in terms of what you said, James. I think that if had it been a draw tonight, I don't think there would have been any eyelids batted. I think that would have been a fair enough result. But I just find that I don't know whether it's because I'm a Leeds. I don't know if it's because I'm a Leeds supporter, but I hate playing a team where the commentator says something like, and he said it earlier, in the last 14 games, Wolves haven't scored first. And I thought, why I don't want to curse. Why do you say that? Why do you say that? Because
we always know that
it's always the same.
Yeah, we all know as Leeds fans, them kind of stats bite us on the arse. We all know that. I
hate that. Somebody comes on as a sub and they say, well, they're bringing him on. He hasn't scored a goal since 2003, and you go, yeah, but yeah. Well, so listen, I'm glad that we've got a game coming up relatively quickly. What do you? I'm sorry, Gerry, I know it's your show. What do you think for the game on Tuesday night then?
I think the Southampton game. It's obviously interesting because we haven't played them yet this season. I honestly don't know what to expect, because you look at Southampton in 1 week they can turn up and win a big game, and then within 13 months they get beat 9-0 twice. It's they're a strange team to look at. One thing then I wanted to ask about was what did the rest of you think then about the defensive midfield position? Obviously Shackleton had a shot tonight. We'll start there with Debbie. You've been quiet, so we'll get your thoughts on it.
I thought the team selection tonight was spot on. I think from what you, Gerry, and Brian have said about Shackleton, I think it's a little bit harsh, to be honest, because I think everyone's expecting him to fill KP's role. No one can fill KP's role. I'm sorry, they can't at the end of the day. And I think it's a little bit unfair to say Shackleton didn't do that tonight. I thought first half Shackleton actually played really well, and I thought that we looked lively in midfield. We looked a lot more comfortable. Obviously, the back four seemed more relaxed, and I think somebody mentioned about when Shackleton got the ball, he wasn't doing KP's role, but when Shackleton got the ball, he passed it forward and then he was up in attack. So it's a total different role for me, because you don't really see KP going that far in attack. So I think it's a total different role and a total different aspect of our game. I think tonight it worked first half. And I think to me that's the filling that we need to do for the games when KP ain't playing, to be honest.
Okay. So for me, the Shackleton situation is kind of twofold, where you have on one aspect, he's a kid playing in that position for the first time. How long did it take Calvin Phillips to get, even how many games did he play in an attacking role before he got, to play that defensive role, and then a couple of, months and whatever under Bielsa, and now a couple of years under Bielsa to get to that level. So I think 100% agree to say that it's not fair to criticise him, but based purely on tonight's match, where we needed somebody to step into the defensive midfield role and do what Calvin Phillips done, and as you say, it's proven to be quite a task, to try and get somebody to do what Calvin does. But for me, he didn't if we're going way the same. Obviously, if Calvin's out again on Tuesday, would I play Shackleton there? I wouldn't personally. I would probably go with somebody else. Again, that's not to say I don't disagree when you say that Shackleton played well. I just don't think that he done what role he was supposed to do necessarily. As I say, there was sometimes he got the ball in really tight spaces and got it out and done really well that way, and then he was bombing forward, and that's not what that role is, and it just for me it was just kind of leaving us sometimes exposed. There was a few times Wolves got the ball in midfield,
Yeah, but
and
Gerry, who can do
wrong.
that role though? We've looked at
Well,
Stuart,
that's
haven't we?
I
And
don't know.
Stuart's not been in the game, and we've been 3-0 down
Don't
at
know.
half time. So I don't.
Yeah.
No,
I don't see who
that's
the
the
answer
thing.
is, to be honest, for that role.
Well, I'd like to stick tuppence in there, which says, in terms of role, the difference between role and player. The role of defensive midfield that KP plays is to act like an old fashioned sweeper. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's sitting in front of it's sitting in front of the back four so that the two centre midfielders can spread out, allowing the two full backs to act like wing backs. So it's a role rather than a player. So therefore it comes down to who can play the role. Shackleton and KP are quite different players, because Shacks to me is, and I'm not being critical of the lad, but I don't think that he's naturally a defensively minded midfielder, and so therefore I thought that he was a little bit out of position on a number of occasions, and particularly in that role. And I would love if you saw a sort of tracer of where he was. Sometimes you see the tracer of where the players are. I would say that in the first half in particular, I thought he was a wee bit out of place. However, in terms of who could play that role, well, that fella born and bred in Leeds, Stuart Dallas, I think that you could put him selling ice creams and he would sell more ice creams than anybody else. I think that you could put him in front of the front four, because he's got something in terms of discipline. I think he's one of the more disciplined people in the team, in terms of if you give him a role to do, he'll do it. He's technically not the best player on the team, but he is, I think, amongst the most disciplined people in the team. KP sort of does that role, and I agree. He's that sort of. It's a role that just really suits him, whether he's been, developed into it and all those things. But he does that role so well. Shax to me is a wee bit small as well. I always think that Shax looks a bit like a kid amongst men. So going forward, his nimbleness and low centre of gravity, I think work for him. But defensively, I think he can look small against some of the big lads that he'd be up against, and he's probably fully grown now. So I think I'd love him to be another. I'm not sure what heights he are. I mean, I haven't got onto the stats, but he doesn't look 6 foot. He looks a bit smaller than that, and it's the same. I'd actually say the same with Pavida, that he comes on and I'd like him to be another sort of 2 or 3 inches taller. I just think that he looks a wee bit like boys amongst men. Now, that's just obviously opinion stuff. But yes, in terms of who would I rather see on Tuesday night, I'd rather see Shax maybe at left back and Dallas move into that role, because I think Dallas is
okay. That's fair enough, and that's fair enough. I've got quite strong opinions on this. I actually played professional till I was 18, and I actually played the KP role. That's where I played, so I do have quite strong feelings on this. So my first thing is, Brian, you was very contradiction of your own comments then. Firstly, your comment was it's not rocket science to play in front of the back four, and then your next comment was you've got to be disciplined. So which one is it? You either it's not rocket science, or you've got to be disciplined. Okay. So firstly, you contradict yourself, and with that comment, which was a bit silly, really. But secondly, as I've alluded to a few times on this, we haven't got a player in the squad who can replace Calvin. We all see that there's not one player in that current squad who can replace Calvin. We do not have a central midfield or defensive midfield player who can play there. Stuart can't play there. He's far too slow to play in that role. It just literally the game bypasses him. Now, I agree about Jamie Shackleton. Jamie Shackleton is not a defensive midfield player. he didn't really know where to be tonight. He did go forward too much rather than hold that position. But that just shows you when a natural number 8 plays in the number 4 position. It's a complete different position. Now, I actually thought he tried to get on the ball. He tried to play the game. He tried to dictate the play. Unfortunately, he's not, and nobody in our squad is Calvin Phillips. And this isn't not just this season. This is 3 seasons now. We have not replaced Calvin. We have not bought a player in 3 years where if Calvin's injured or suspended to play in that role. Now, we've tried so many players since Bielsa's been here to fill that void, and we just do not have one at the club. In my opinion, as it stands right now, Jamie Shackleton is the best player to play in there. I'm not saying he fits the role. I'm not saying he's great for that role. But what we've got, I actually think he's the best player. I agree Stewart could, maybe could play there. Him or Shackleton, but again, Stewart is not the answer. But there is no one at the club who can play that role naturally.
Yeah. Just to get clear, you mightn't have picked me up. I meant Stewart, as in Stuart Dallas, not Struijk. So when I was saying,
I'm just saying that Stewart. Yeah. I'm just saying there isn't anyone at the club. So we've tried different players.
Oh yeah, okay.
In recent week, we've tried Stewart in recent weeks, and it hasn't worked.
Okay, just to get, and it's because it's interesting, and I know, I mean, and thank you for your critique of what I was saying. I mean, what I meant by the not rocket science bit was that you sit in front of the front 4. That's, I think that being there is the key bit. That's what I meant about the rocket science. I'm not saying it's an easy role, and a discipline. Just in terms of my discipline, I mean, again, the same that. You're right. I think he's more number 8 than a number 4, and I felt that he was meant to be in the number 4 position, but quite a lot during the first half. I think you're right, and that's what I meant. So I mean, maybe I'm just being clumsy by what I say. What I meant was he should have been in an area that I didn't think he was. Quite often, I thought that he was very quick to be forward, and that the danger was that could leave us exposed. So. Do you not think that there's anybody better than Shacks to play the KP role if KP is out?
Not in the current squad.
I think that there is.
That's the biggest problem.
We have anybody better than that?
Not in the current squad, and that's a shame. Do you think
he's big enough to play that? Do you think he's big enough to play that role, though, James? Do you think he's got a physical?
It was 0-0 at half time. It weren't 3-0 like the Arsenal game, was it? It was 0-0 today at half time. So the team worked well and something went right, didn't I know every game's different, but I do think today I was set up, and at half time I weren't worried about that role, to be honest, and I was against Arsenal.
All I'll say is he played there for 70 minutes against Aston Villa and we won 3-0. So I mean, again, it's not me saying he's the solution. It's saying he's the best of a so-called bad bunch at the moment, and he's a good player. But as what I do agree with you, Brian, is that he is playing. It's not about the player; it's about the role at the minute. He's a very good player, but that is not his natural role, and we all agree that.
Massive boots.
I just think at the club at the moment, is there if Calvin Phillips is injured, who else could play that role? And I honestly, I know you've alluded to Stuart Dallas.
Yeah.
And that's the point. And to me, I still think that probably Jamie Shackleton, other than Calvin Phillips, is the best player to play that role. Now, that's not saying he's the answer long term. That's just saying until you sign somebody else who can replace KP, you have no choice.
Do you think with anybody up the sleeves then? So just moving slightly further on then. Does anybody think that we've got somebody up our sleeves? Everybody's, and again, it's all just media and social media talk. Nobody had a busy January window. Where do you think we'll strengthen? And is that KP role somewhere where you say we have to strengthen, but we bring somebody new in, a younger, somebody else younger? Do you think we're going to buy somebody more experienced for the bench?
Left back and central midfield are vital.
What do you think you do?
Left back and central midfield. Left back and central midfield have got to be the first 2 positions To be
You
fair,
mean
I
a
speak to
number
obviously a
4
lot
or
of Leeds
number 8
fans, and
though?
everyone I've spoken to, if you had to pick two positions, I think 99% of Leeds fans at the moment would pick a left back and cover for midfield. I think it's so glaringly obvious that they're the two positions that we need players for. I don't think it's really not really a debate. It's a good question, but I think that most people would agree that they're the two positions you really got to strengthen as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'm going to press you a bit harder than that though, James, because a centre midfield, do you mean a number 4 or a number 8? Or do you mean both?
Oh, certainly a number 4. As we said before, there isn't anyone who can replace Calvin. So it's got to be a number 4. It's got to be. It has to be a number 4. There's
So
just
that's
no...
a bit of a but that's a bit of a challenge then, isn't it? Because you'd be and I mean I agree with you by the way, but you'd be looking for somebody actually to understudy him, unless you're thinking that you can go big into the marketplace and replace him.
I don't think you're ever going to replace him. I think that in every squad you've got to have cover for every position. Now we haven't got a natural left back at the club at the minute. I mean, really, Leif Davis is our only what you would call natural left back at the club. So that for me is absolutely vital. Now, and I think we've learned from not just the last 2 or 3 games, but from the games previously before Christmas when Calvin was injured. You have to, whatever you say, whether it's a player to replace him, a player to support him, a player to understudy him, whatever way you want to look at it, there is no questions. You need another number 4. There is no argument. We need another number 4. We do not have one at the club. You cannot go on the whole season with just Calvin. We all know that. We've seen that. He's got injured. He gets suspended. You can't play without him. So you've got to find a way, and the only way is to bring someone else who can play that role.
I think one of the interesting things about the signing a midfielder is I think you've basically got 2 options there, and I'm 90% sure I know which one Bielsa would probably go with. You either get a young number 4, somebody like sort of teenage, early 20s, who will maybe look to have a few years ahead of them, or you go with somebody a bit more experienced that can play 4 and not necessarily it, but like can play at least 2 of them positions in midfield. So is that personally, I think the one that we talked about in January was the guy at Fiorentina. I think he's at Eric Pulgar. I think he's from somewhere in South America. But I've seen him a few times whenever it was actually it was before he went to, I think he was at Bologna possibly, and I've seen him a few times. I'd watch a few Serie A games, and I think he would be a good option where he can play the sort of centre, he can play in centre midfield, and he could play the defensive midfield role as well. And I think he would be kind of the sort of guy that Bielsa might like. On the point earlier, obviously, Brian, you were saying about the height thing. I do. I understand obviously where you're coming from on that one, but I would definitely like 2 of the best players I've ever seen playing in those defensive midfield roles, and Pirlo and Xavi were no bigger than Jamie Shackleton. They were 2 fantastic players. I think in midfield,
Claude Makelele at Chelsea.
Claude Makelele, another one, yeah. I think if you
the
had
best defensive midfielder you've ever seen,
and Kante, another Leicester and Chelsea,
exactly.
As long as you have the technical ability, as they say, I think there's been attitudes, and I know like from coaching, constantly we guys, it's like he's not big enough to play, and then like I think now like Europe certainly shows that like that kind of attitude across like Britain and Ireland is definitely not right. And I know to this day it still happens sometimes. Like people are told you're not big enough to play this position or whatever, but definitely I think there's enough evidence that if you're technically good enough, you can do it, and especially for a team like Leeds where like technicality is way more important for us than physicality. So I definitely wouldn't put that against them.
But you know what, Gerry, that's really interesting because I mean, one of my childhood heroes would have been Billy Bremner. Billy wasn't exactly lanky, and but he had a physical presence about him. Shaq's, to me, it's not. It's maybe I'm saying that he is. Sorry, you'll have to give my kitchen clock. It's maybe not that I'm. When I'm saying it's maybe that he's not tall enough or whatever that case is. I think maybe that it's more about, and I think actually, to be fair, James probably nailed it way better by just simply saying he's more number 8 than he is a number 4, and that's maybe the exposure. Maybe I'm just representing that by saying his stature is not big enough, but the stature or the height or whatever is that thing that says give the ball to KP, and I just feel that that there's a security around him, where maybe. I don't feel that quite the same way as Shaq's. What do you guys think to this? And I mean, I'm all new to all this, so you'll forgive me. I'm probably asking stuff, and there's probably hours of archive. I have watched a bit of DePaul on TV, and he does look like he looks like a sort of player, the Udinese guy that we've been linked with. I know he's been linked with other clubs, including Liverpool. He'd be more a number 8 than a number 4, though, wouldn't he?
Yeah,
he's definitely number 8. Yeah, he's definitely
yeah. So he's not necessarily the solution.
Definitely.
So if in my own mind, I'm sitting there, and I'm not clever enough to know the names or who it might be, but it sort of would be great if you could have somebody who could play anywhere in that diamond, but just be a good fill in for KP if KP's not playing. And it is a little bit, maybe just that's one of those areas, as you say about the left back as well. It's an area where we don't really have a lot of cover, but we don't really have a lot of cover for Bamford either, because I don't think that we've got another out and out striker. I don't think that I'm not convinced that Rodrigo's an out and out striker, number 9, the way Bamford is. So. Yeah, it'll be really interesting now to see the way the squad will develop. I mean, tonight sort of says to me that it's a stretch to get to Europa League. I'm not sure that I'd want us to be in the Europa League, to be honest. I think it might be a bit of a distraction. And that being the case, then a lot of the rest of the season is going to be considering the build-up for next season. And that opens up a lot of potential, but also some threats. Because and it's interesting. I think that as Oscar Wilde says, "Love me or hate me," but the only thing worse than not being talked about or being talked about is not being talked about. And now, having got away with a close season without losing any of our star players, it's interesting the way the media is all of a sudden thinking, well, if you're a club in the middle of the Premiership, then the guys immediately above are much more likely to be sharks on you. Well, how do you think that might look?
I think it's going to be a big test.
Just going on your earlier comment.
Sorry, I know. Well, just to answer that, just to say, I think that it's going to be a big test for the board and Radrizzani. Like so far, obviously, he's done good things, and he's got us where he said he was going to take us. We've got the ground and all that there. Obviously, I expect that some big hitters are gonna test us this summer. So it'll be interesting to see what happens at the end of the day if somebody comes in with a silly offer, and Victor Orta showed that he has a good eye for a player. So if he has an eye on someone and a ready-made replacement, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I think certainly if we go into next season and Rafinha and Calvin Phillips are still at the club, I'll still be feeling positive. They're the two that I think at the minute we really can't afford to lose. But we'll see. Obviously, we will strengthen in the summer. As you have all said, left back and centre midfield have to be priority. So you were going to say something there, James?
It was just kind of following on from what Brian said, and I agree that we've got to probably try and sign a player who can play the 4 and the 8 role, so to speak. And to be fair, the little bit of knowledge that I did have on Michael Saysons, he was a player who actually could play the number 4 and the number 8, hence why the club was so keen on him. Obviously, the foot injury came as a problem in the summer, hence why they didn't sign him. So that's the kind of player that we have to be looking for. I have to be honest and say I don't know anything about Eric Pulgar, so I can't say whether he would be a match to play the 4 and the 8. But it would certainly be ideal to bring a player that could cover for Calvin and could cover for Click, because other than those two in that position, we don't what you'd call probably quality cover. And just following on from what you said, Gerry, I completely agree about the Calvin Phillips and the Rafinha comment. They're the two players that you probably couldn't afford to lose. But there's one player who I might say now we couldn't afford to lose, who would maybe be controversial to a lot of Leeds fans. We couldn't lose Patrick Bamford. He's absolutely pivotal. He's pivotal to how we play. He would be just a bigger loss for me. He'd be a massive loss. He's completely different weight in them two.
Yeah. It was interesting to see that Gareth Southgate was there tonight. You think he was watching Dallas?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's
Leeds
an Irish joke. You'll have to forgive me. Gerry and I would find that funny.
Yeah, you'll carry on with that for a few long. Yeah.
He did. That's the first time that Ian Darke hasn't said that he's Leeds born and bred for a number of matches. Yeah. Who was it was co-commentating with Ian Darke tonight? Lucy. I couldn't think of her.
Lucy Ward. She was. Don't know whether she's married or is a girlfriend of Neil Redfern.
Oh, right. Okay. I really enjoyed her co-commentary tonight. I think that I'm a big supporter of having more women, and because this could sound patronizing, so forgive me. I'm just saying that I think that it's been a really positive development to have more women, both commentating and punditing on football. And I know that that girl Karen Kearney got a bit of a blast for frankly saying something that was untenable about Leeds and COVID. It was a very stupid comment, but I wouldn't want that to be a highlight versus the fact that I think it's really refreshing. And there's the standard of women's football. I think it has improved so much in the last few years. But what do you think about that yourself then? I mean, really, I'd be interested to hear your opinion, Debbie, because, you've maybe, we're living through a bit of a sexual revolution when it comes to females being involved. I don't think it's going to be that long before we're going to have women refereeing Premier games. I mean, I'm a bit of a rugby freak. I go watch Ulster play, and there are females refereeing rugby games, and I tell you, if they can referee rugby games, they can referee football games. What do you think? I'd be really interested to hear your opinion of what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the way forward. Why not? We've all got a brain, haven't we? And we've all got an opinion. I mean, Karen didn't do herself any favours, did she, with what she said? Let's face it. And to me, just know your facts and don't embarrass yourself, basically. She obviously didn't know facts, did she? And she did sort of embarrass herself. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's women linesmen now and things. I think why not?
Yeah, it was quite a few years ago now. But when the two lads who used to head up Sky, Gray, and what do you call the other guy?
Richard Keys.
Richard Keys. I mean, that must be 10 years
Keys
ago.
Yeah,
and they made the comments about the female linesman. That must be 10. Would that be 10 years ago?
I'm sure it is. Must
be 10
it's getting on for a few years.
Yeah, so there's certainly been. I mean, I think it's great. And I mean, my missus just isn't interested in football whatsoever. I mean, she's sort of comfort Leeds supporter. She'll come in and watch it, and she'll feel sorry for me when it's bad and cheer with me when it's good. But she's not interested. But I really think that it's a really positive thing. And I mean, I've been in the States. I lived in the States briefly in the late 80s and saw the shape of the lads that playing football as a lad in the late 80s in the States. People were looking sideways at you going, can you not play anything else? While the ladies game in the States has always been really, really developed. It's interesting. It's very interesting the way that the game's developed in the States over the last 2 or 3 years, because it's got a little bit more serious now. But I thought Lucy was pretty good tonight. And actually, I've seen loads of times when Karen's been good, and I quite like, because it's feisty and it's a wee bit different, and people think of things in different ways, and it's a bit of a shame that she threw the spotlight on herself by such a silly thing to say. But sure, then whoever's let the first person in the glass house throw a stone, or whatever that phrase is. Anyway, so it's been really interesting to hear the opinions tonight. We're actually ending up, I think, okay, despite the fact how do we won the loss. But it was only a 1-0 loss, it wasn't 3-0, 4-0.
It's ruined our weekend.
We've had a couple of 3 or 4. Well, actually, I'd rather get beaten on a Friday night because getting beaten a Sunday or a Saturday night, I think, is way worse. Because you can sort of get up tomorrow and pretend it happen and look forward to Tuesday.
Sure.
I think obviously what he says about the girls and women talking and being on the shows, like I think ultimately a man or a woman, I think too much was made of the Karen Carney thing, where people made out people were only criticising her because she was a woman. Whereas at the end of the day, I see male commentators all the time making absolute No, it wasn't. It wasn't the reason why we were. And I think even on this show, you can see there's plenty of girls. With Debbie has been on a few times, and we had Heidi on it the weekend, and you can tell straight away. See, whenever you talk to somebody about football, and I talk to people and work and stuff, and you can tell straight away if they're a bullshitter. And to me, there's people like Debbie, like Heidi, and they know more about football than hundreds of people that I've worked with that would claim to be big football fans. And I'm all for it, and definitely get as many involved, as many girls involved. And as you say, in America, the American girls, I read that in America the most played sport now is soccer, and among kids, and over 50% of them are girls. So it's still women's soccer in America is obviously still massive, and they've got the medals in the World Cup.
And Paul Reaney came in and coached me.
Paul Reaney did. Very good, very good.
Yeah, came in and coached me. Yeah. So it started back then, which is not too long ago, but a little bit.
Yeah.
But I just think that if obviously Karen's paid to do a job and she needs to know her facts.
Well,
there's a difference to me and Heidi coming on and talking to you guys.
Well, I agree with you all, which is, look, if a pundit says something completely ridiculous, they deserve to get a fair bit of criticism, which is what she got. But the bit that was unacceptable was that there was a sort of male chauvinist response to, and it was because you're a woman that you said it. And that was the bit that I objected to, because men come out with SH1T about football all day, every day, and they don't get called up for it.
Then the week after the Stuart Dallas comment again.
Well, I rest my case.
Exactly. BT commentators.
Yeah, but nobody would have pulled Ian Dark up for saying he was. I don't actually. To be fair, I don't know if it was Ian Dark or not. But nobody pulled him up for that being a silly comment that he repeated.
He got slated on social media.
He got slated. Sorry, he didn't get pulled up for being a man for saying it, is what I mean. He might have got slated in social media for saying something silly, but nobody said he was a silly man. And that's the bit about the Carney bit that I find objectionable, that, there were a lot of men who decided to add in, misogynist and horrible comments, which doesn't do anybody any favors. I think I
agree with Gerry though. I think the fact of the matter is, it wasn't whether she was male or female. It was the comment. It was, and
yes,
whether
that's right. No, I
whether
100%.
another male commentator made that comment, he would have received the same criticism in a different way.
Yeah.
There was literally, the criticism started because it was an unfound comment. And then we had the week later. Forgive me for the I've got it on my Twitter. I cannot remember for the life of me who the commentator was, but he started talking about how Leeds were on a poor run before the COVID break. Well, we had won 5. It was John Barnes.
Yeah.
He was saying, Karen Carney was spot on. She was absolutely right with the comments. Leeds were on a poor run before COVID. Before COVID, when we won 5 in a row without conceding a goal. So no, we wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, it's unfound statistics. So for me, it wasn't about being a female or being a male. It was an unfounded, untrue, incorrect comment.
Yeah, it was actually really, really silly thing. But do you know what didn't get picked? Well, maybe it did get picked up a wee bit. And I'm not sure whether it who the other player was and the commentator, but one of the other guys said spot on when she said, I don't think, I think it was because of COVID that got promoted. And somebody else,
Jimmy Hasselbank.
Who was it? The other person who said spot on?
I think it was Jimmy Floyd.
Was it Jimmy Floyd? That's
don't get me started.
If you go back to it.
He's
the other person.
He did not have a word to say about us.
One of the others said, "Yes, spot on."
Yeah. No, I think it was. But I'm aware of the time, but just before we finish, I think just on that sort of whole thing about pundits is, you had the one there a couple of weeks ago where Man City scored a goal and the commentator kept saying Gundogan. And I think it was like Silver, somebody else scored the goal anyway, and they later on then they put on like one of the papers wrote an article about it giving off, and he was like, oh, thanks, you've never made a mistake in your life and all, but the point for me is, whenever you make a living critiquing people and how they perform and how they are doing things, and then you throw your toys out of the pram because people are critiquing you back, I don't think you have a leg to stand on personally. I think once that's your job, and if a player makes a balls up, you'll talk about it, and if you make a balls up, we'll all talk about it. So I think that's the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's the way it has to be. But anyway, here it's been an hour and 8 minutes, so I'm aware that people will have to get to bed, drink more beer, whatever it is you're doing. But my thanks to for me and Debbie sort of had a fun little treat there for a bit of a. I don't know about you, Debbie, but I think there's maybe room for a bromance there with James and Brian, if they can get over there. For there was a few wee difficulties there. I thought
what tonight?
But there's definitely it was certainly an
agreement to be a relationship there. Far too many.
Let's tell you.
Is that not how it works? Disagreements all the time? No, is that not how it goes?
I didn't feel anything at all tonight. As long as James realizes he's wrong, I think it'll be all great next time. No, again. Listen, football is. We're all in the same team, and even if I was a Wolves supporter, I mean, I think that we should be able to have a good old chat about it. It's only football. There's lots worse things happen at sea. You still gotta get up and put your knickers on in the morning, crack on with another day. So we'll just have to do it. So I didn't get to tell you.
As I said earlier, football's about opinions. It's what makes it great.
Yeah.
It's what makes it great. It'd be completely boring if we all sat here and had the same opinion. Completely boring.
100%.
Nodding dogs for an hour.
As a wise man once said, I think opinions are like arses. Everybody has one. So we'll leave it on that rather crude note to finish. But no, thanks very much, James and Debbie, for coming on, and Brian for coming on. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's a bad night for the result, but I get a good bit of entertainment out of it anyway. And thanks to you guys for coming on, and we'll be back with the channel next week. I think Tuesday night maybe we're playing Southampton, so there'll probably be shows on Monday and Tuesday. So we'll be back then. So thanks to everybody that watched.
Lovely meeting you guys.
Thanks everyone.
Come on,
Take care. See you.
We're back again soon.
On.
Cheers, folks. Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye.